Line is the most basic element of art. In this lesson, we will explore how lines in art communicate ideas and emotions to the viewer. Line has several roles in an artwork. As we name the roles that line has, keep in mind that it often achieves many of these roles simultaneously. Line can connect 2 points of art in an artwork. It can define boundaries between planes and shapes. Line directs our eye to a specific part of an artwork the artist might want us to recognize. Lines create the illusion of space, and lines add emotion and energy to an artwork. Now let's explore some examples of how lines do these things and how you can use it when you create art. Line can define boundaries between planes and shapes. We usually refer to this kind of line as an outline. Outlining artwork is great when you want a flat, graphic style. Roy Lichtenstein is known for creating oil paintings based on comic strips. He copies the style of printed comics and makes liberal use of outlining. This technique tends to flatten the space in the artwork, making everything seem more two-dimensional and lacking depth. Line can direct our eye to a specific part of an artwork. In this comic page by Art Adams, we see Batman's foe on the ground in front of us. However, pipes in the upper third of the picture plane point to Batman hiding above him. The artist is creating a focal point with lines so that we can see our hero more easily. Just as outlining an object can compress the depth in an artwork, lines used in linear perspective will create depth. This artist is using perspective line to create a complicated scene of the interior of a church in one-point perspective. Perspective drawing was invented in the 1400s, so this artist is using relatively new technology to create this artwork. Another way line can create space is through optical illusion. This person is standing on a flat, painted courtyard, but the changes in line thickness and proximity create movement and depth, giving the illusion of a cone. Lines add emotion and energy to an artwork. This is very important to remember when you are creating any two-dimensional composition. Vertical lines communicate strength, stability, and authority. Horizontal lines communicate calm, peacefulness, and passiveness, while diagonal lines communicate movement, action, and drama. If you're working on an artwork that seems a bit boring, try adding some diagonal lines to add tension and action. Let's look at some examples. This street artist, who goes by the name of Buff Dis, works in tape. His mural was created in an abandoned building using black and white tape. Notice the turbulence created by the diagonal lines. Not only is this boat at an angle, but the water is represented by groups of diagonal stripes. We get the feeling of motion and that this boat is being tossed by the waves. Horizontal lines symbolize stillness and rest. This image seems absolutely still. Notice all of the horizontal lines in the chair, in the skirt of the girl, and in the cat. It almost feels like there is no air in this room at all. Vertical lines communicate authority, stability, and strength. Think of most government buildings. Many have strong vertical lines or even columns out front. The architects who created these buildings want to project strength and authority to symbolize sound governance. We can also look at different kinds of line in an artwork. For example, a contour line defines the outer edges of an object and some of the interior planes. When I say a line drawing, this is probably what you think of. Notice the confident and graceful lines Matisse used to create these delicate flowers. Expressive line communicates emotion or information. For example, the wavy lines surrounding Pigpen in this Peanuts cartoon indicate that he might be dirty or smelly. An implied line creates the illusion of a line through the close proximity of shapes or elements. A dotted line is a great example of an implied line. We see implied line here in this image where the ice and the water meet in the foreground of the painting. The ice does not connect all the way across the image, but we get the sense of a line separating the ice and the water. This is a wonderful example of the difference types of lines can make. The defined line that outlines the apple on the left seems to flatten the form. Can we agree that the implied line that is created by the value changes in the image on the right looks more three-dimensional and voluminous? Lastly, I'd like to discuss line variation. Variations in the thickness of line is critical for creating an expressive drawing that shows volume and interest. Notice how this figure is grounded by the wider lines of the legs, where the thinner lines surrounding the figure suggest a transparent fabric. Now imagine this drawing without the line variation. Would it have the same impact? Now that you are aware of the role lines play in two-dimensional art, you can activate your own drawings by creating works that are more powerful and dynamic.